Hello everyone, John AG here. Welcome back to my channel, Aurex. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel. In this channel, you will find the real information, the real market updates that everyone cannot tell you. So please subscribe to this channel, and I love you all of my subscribers for your support. And please watch this video till the very end, because YouTube will not push my videos to more people. The algorithms are designed to hide this exact type of financial truth from the masses. So your watch time and your attention today are the only things breaking through that matrix. Look at the world around you right now. Do not look at the distractions on your television. Do not look at the political theater designed to keep you angry, exhausted, and divided. Really look at the structural, undeniable reality of your daily life. You can feel it, can't you? Deep in the pit of your stomach, in the quiet moments when you are sitting at your kitchen table looking at the month's bills, you can feel that something is fundamentally, irreparably broken in the global economic system. You are working harder today than you ever have in your entire life. You put in the extra hours, you sacrifice your weekends, you play by the exact rules that you were taught in school, and yet, every single month, you find yourself falling further and further behind. The financial finish line isn't just moving, it is sprinting away from you at breakneck speed. We are standing in the year 2026, and you are living through the most critical, violent, and absolute financial shift in human history. What is happening right now under the surface of the global economy is a wealth transfer so massive, so profoundly historical, that it will dictate the financial destiny of your children, your grandchildren, and generations you will never even meet. The fundamental rules of money have entirely changed. The American empire, which has ruthlessly dictated the terms of global finance since the ink dried at the Bretton Woods Conference at the end of the Second World War, is no longer just facing a cyclical crisis. It is facing a mathematical certainty. The absolute collapse of the US dollar's global monopoly. While the mainstream financial media distracts you with daily stock market fluctuations, celebrity trials, and meaningless political debates that change nothing, the smartest, most ruthless investors in the world, along with entire sovereign nations, are quietly, methodically positioning themselves to make absolute, generational fortunes as the fiat paper system crumbles into dust. Today, in this video, I am going to pull back the heavy curtain. I am going to show you exactly how they are executing this wealth transfer, the precise assets they are accumulating in the dark, and most importantly, how you can use their exact blueprint to protect your family and build immense wealth in the face of this collapse. Listen to me very carefully, because this is the foundational truth you must accept before we go any further. To understand how to get rich in the coming collapse, you must first completely deconstruct the financial illusion you have been living inside of since the day you were born. For over 50 years, humanity has been participating in the greatest, most reckless economic experiment ever attempted in the history of civilization. A global financial system backed by absolutely nothing. Zero. Nothing but the empty promises of politicians and the whirring printing presses of central banks. When the United States unilaterally severed the link between the dollar and physical gold in 1971, they did something incredibly dangerous and ultimately fatal to the middle class. They removed the only natural, mathematical restraint on human greed and government expansion. In that fateful moment, they transformed money from a reliable store of human energy and labor into an instrument of infinite debt. They created a parasitic system where wealth could be generated not through hard work, not through entrepreneurial innovation, not through the physical production of vital goods that improve human life, but through the simple, effortless pressing of a button on a Federal Reserve computer terminal. For decades, this predatory system appeared to function perfectly for the West. The United States enjoyed what a French finance minister once called the exorbitant privilege of printing paper and exchanging it for real cars, real electronics, real oil, and real human labor from the rest of the world. They effectively exported their inflation, forcing developing nations to absorb the catastrophic cost of American deficit spending. But you cannot cheat the fundamental laws of mathematics forever. History shows us that every single fiat currency ever created eventually returns to its intrinsic value, which is zero. The bill always comes due, and in 2026, the collection agency is at the door. The mathematics have broken. The United States national debt is spiraling completely out of control, accelerating at a pace that terrifies even the most conservative economists on Wall Street. We are staring down the barrel of nearly $40 trillion in sovereign debt, with annual deficit spending routinely approaching $2 to $3 trillion, even in times of supposed economic stability. I want you to stop and genuinely think about what that actually means for your life. The government is spending trillions of dollars it simply does not have, every single year. How do they pay for these unfunded liabilities? They cannot tax the population enough to cover it. That would cause an immediate mathematical depression and political revolt. So they print it. They monetize the debt through central bank wizardry. Here is the terrifying reality that they absolutely refuse to teach you in university economics classes. Every single time a central bank prints a new dollar, euro, or pound out of thin air, they are not magically creating new wealth. That is physically impossible. What they are actually doing is stealing the purchasing power, the stored life energy of the dollars already sitting in your bank account, your retirement fund, and your wallet. Inflation is not an accident. It is not some mysterious economic weather pattern that blows in from the ocean. It is not caused by greedy grocery store owners, and it is not caused by temporary supply chain disruptions, despite what press secretaries stand at podiums and tell you. Inflation is a deliberate, calculated, and legally sanctioned policy. It is a hidden, highly regressive tax levied violently against the working class and the middle class to pay for the reckless debts of the political and financial elite. When you go to the store today and see that basic groceries have doubled in price over the last few years, when you see that the dream of owning a simple three-bedroom home has been violently ripped out of reach for millions of hardworking young people, you are not witnessing the value of houses or eggs going up. You are witnessing the value of your currency utterly collapsing in real time. You are measuring your life in a yardstick that is shrinking every single day. Before we talk about how you can profit, we must acknowledge the severe human cost of this transition. Because macroeconomic finance is not just about charts, algorithms, and sterile central bank policy meetings. Finance is intimately, deeply about human energy. It is about the finite time you have on this earth. When you wake up early, leave your family, and go to work, you are literally trading the most precious commodity in the universe. Your life energy, your hours, your sweat, your intellectual capacity, for a medium of exchange called money. Money is designed to be an economic battery. It is supposed to perfectly store your expended life energy so that you can safely carry it into the future to feed your children, to purchase a home, to weather a medical emergency, and to eventually retire with a sense of dignity and peace. But when a government and a central bank conspire to print trillions of currency units to fund endless wars and bail out failing banking institutions, they are actively, maliciously draining the energy out of your personal battery. They are reaching backward in time and stealing the hours of your life that you have already worked. This is the great silent human tragedy of our modern era. I see it every single day. I read the thousands of comments on this channel. I read your emails. I hear the raw desperation, the profound confusion, and the burning anger in people's voices. You have millions of good, honest, hardworking people all over the world who are playing a game that has been completely rigged against them from the start. They are faithfully saving their labor in a currency that is mathematically engineered to melt like an ice cube resting on a hot stove. They are advised by conventional financial planners to safely park their money in a savings account, yielding maybe 4 or 5%, while the actual real-world cost of living, housing, energy, food, insurance, is compounding upward at 15 to 20% a year. They are being silently, systematically bled dry by a system that demands their compliance, but offers them absolutely no protection. This reality breaks my heart. I feel a deep human sorrow for those who will be entirely wiped out in this transition because they simply did not know any better. But that sorrow also fuels a massive, relentless anger within me. Because you do not have to be a victim of this system. You do not have to passively let them steal your future and the future of your children. The collapse of the dollar's purchasing power is an absolute, unmitigated tragedy for the uninformed. But for the educated, for the aggressively prepared, for the smart investor who understands the mechanics of this shift, it is unequivocally the greatest, most asymmetric opportunity for staggering wealth generation in the entire history of global capitalism. Here is the secret that the wealthy know, the core principle that separates the financial elite from the victims of the system. Wealth is never truly destroyed. It merely changes hands. When a fiat currency collapses under the weight of its own debt, the intrinsic wealth of the world doesn't vanish into thin air. Farms still produce food. Oil wells still produce energy. Real estate still provides shelter. The wealth simply flows out of decaying paper assets and rapidly flows into hard, tangible assets. It flows violently away from the uneducated masses holding cash and directly into the hands of the prepared investors holding real things. To position yourself on the correct side of this monumental wealth transfer, you must look beyond your own borders and observe the geopolitical earthquake happening right now. For decades, the global South and the Eastern powers accepted the US dollar's absolute dominance because it was convenient and deeply entrenched. The dollar was the undisputed medium of global exchange, the primary unit of account, and the ultimate global store of value. The entire global economy ran on the petrodollar system. If a country wanted to trade on the international stage, if they wanted to buy energy to keep their citizens from freezing in the winter, they needed US dollars. But then, the Western financial empire made a fatal, irreversible miscalculation. In their absolute arrogance, they turned the global reserve currency into a weapon of war. when the United States and its allies decided to freeze the sovereign foreign exchange reserves of competing nations, when they weaponized the SWIFT messaging system to excommunicate countries from global trade, and when they began enforcing aggressive secondary sanctions on any neutral nation that refused to comply with Western foreign policy, they crossed a historical Rubicon. They sent an unmistakable, terrifying message to every single finance minister and central bank governor on the planet. The US dollar is no longer a neutral, safe asset. The dollar is a geopolitical liability, and if you step out of line, your national wealth can be erased with a single keystroke in Washington. And the world listened. They didn't just listen, they mobilized with unprecedented speed. What started as a slow academic trickle in the early 2020s has become a roaring, unstoppable flood in 2026. The BRICS nations, an economic bloc which now represents a significantly larger share of global GDP, global population, and global natural resources than the G7, are not just complaining about the dollar anymore. They are actively, aggressively building a parallel, alternative financial universe. We are currently witnessing the rapid, massive expansion of alternative non-Western payment systems. We are watching bilateral currency swap arrangements expanding at an unprecedented rate, allowing nations to trade directly in their own local currencies. We are seeing the implementation of blockchain-based cross-border settlement platforms specifically designed to circumvent Western correspondent banking entirely. Most critically, Saudi Arabia, the absolute cornerstone of the petrodollar system for 50 years, is now routinely and openly settling massive energy trades in Chinese yuan and other non-dollar currencies. The petrodollar is dead, and with it goes the artificial demand that kept the American currency afloat for half a century. This is not a fringe internet conspiracy theory. This is documented, empirical, undeniable macroeconomic reality. The global financial landscape is undergoing a tectonic plate shift. Emerging and powerhouse economies are systematically and ruthlessly liquidating their reliance on U.S. Treasury bonds and dollar-denominated assets. Why are they doing this? Because they face a mathematical certainty that infinite U.S. deficit spending will completely erode the dollar's purchasing power, and a stark geopolitical certainty that relying on Western financial infrastructure is an existential threat to their sovereign independence. They are abandoning the paper dollar. But that begs the trillion-dollar question. If they are dumping paper, what exactly are they buying? If you genuinely want to know what the smart institutional money is doing, you must never listen to what they say in their press conferences. You must only watch what they actually do with their capital. Over the last several years, leading up to today, global central banks have been hoarding physical gold at a violent, voracious pace not seen since the gold standard eras of the 19th and early 20th centuries. Sovereign nations like China, India, Russia, Poland, and Singapore have methodically, relentlessly backed up the truck and loaded their most secure vaults with physical bullion. They are operating under the radar, converting their vulnerable paper trade surpluses into indestructible elemental wealth. In 2026, we have crossed a mathematical threshold that will be studied in financial history books for the next 300 years. For the first time in modern monetary history, the value of global official gold holdings has reached an absolute parity with the U.S. Treasury securities held by foreign governments. I need you to let the magnitude of that reality sink in. The sovereign nations of the world are now holding as much wealth in physical gold as they are holding in American government debt. The great rotation has happened. They are actively trading the paper promises of a heavily indebted empire for the tangible, historical reality of sound money. What you are witnessing is the great remonetization of gold. For decades, highly paid Wall Street bankers and mainstream financial advisors condescendingly told you that gold was a barbarous relic, a useless pet rock that paid no yield and belonged in the past. They openly mocked retail investors who sought the safety of precious metals. But in periods of severe monetary, fiscal, and geopolitical instability, all illusions are stripped away. When counterparty risk becomes the greatest threat in the financial system, gold effortlessly reclaims its rightful, undisputed throne as the ultimate, trust-independent asset. Physical gold has shattered historical resistance levels because it is finally pricing in the death of the fiat system. But you must understand a critical shift in perspective. This is not a traditional bull market in gold. A bull market implies that gold is somehow magically going up in value. That is a dangerous illusion. Gold is not going up. The purchasing power of the fiat currencies of the world is violently collapsing downward. Gold is simply the absolute, immutable mirror reflecting the utter destruction of paper money. An ounce of gold buys the exact same standard of living today as it did 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and 2,000 years ago. It is the fiat currencies that are plummeting to the floor. So the ultimate question remains, how do you practically, tactically protect yourself? How do you position your family's hard-earned wealth so that you are not just surviving the coming currency crisis, but you are thriving and building a financial fortress? How exactly are the smart investors, the elites, getting incredibly rich as the dollar collapses? You must follow the golden rule of the financial elite in times of crisis. You must aggressively get out of paper promises, and you must firmly anchor your capital into absolute reality. The very first pillar of your wealth defense must be physical precious metals. And let me be absolutely clear about this. I am not talking about paper gold. I am not talking about derivatives, futures contracts, or heavily financialized ETFs, where you merely hold a digital claim on a bar of gold that may or may not actually exist in a heavily rehypothecated vault in London. I am talking about physical, tangible, sovereign minted bullion. Gold and silver that you can hold in the palm of your hand, completely outside of the banking system. When the most powerful central banks on earth are accumulating physical gold at record historic speeds to protect their sovereign wealth, you need to be doing the exact same thing to protect your personal wealth. Gold is the ultimate, universally recognized insurance policy against the hubris and arrogance of central bankers. It is an asset that carries absolute zero counterparty risk. If the entire global banking system suffers a catastrophic freeze tomorrow morning, a 1-ounce gold coin in your hand is still a 1-ounce gold coin, retaining its immense purchasing power globally. Silver, meanwhile, is the vital, irreplaceable industrial backbone of the entire new economy. From highly advanced solar panel grids to millions of electric vehicles to critical military, space, and medical equipment, the physical demand for silver is utterly and violently disconnecting from the manipulated paper pricing markets. When the severe physical shortage finally breaks the paper pricing mechanisms established by the major banks, the violent, immediate upward repricing of physical silver will be legendary, creating massive fortunes for those who accumulated it early when it was ignored by the masses. The second pillar of this wealth transfer is strategic commodities and energy infrastructure. The world is rapidly fracturing into two distinct, highly competitive economic blocks. On one side, you have the heavily financialized, severely debt-burdened, service-oriented West. On the other side, you have the BRICS-aligned global South and East, which currently controls the vast, overwhelming majority of the world's vital natural resources. We are talking about crude oil, natural gas, uranium for nuclear power, copper for electrification, lithium, and critical agricultural fertilizers. The smartest institutional investors in the world are aggressively buying equity in the unglamorous, hard asset companies that pull these essential resources out of the dirt. They are investing heavily in tangible energy infrastructure, pipelines, shipping fleets, and refineries. Because they understand a fundamental truth. No matter what happens to the value of a piece of paper, no matter who is elected president, and no matter what geopolitical alliances form, humanity will always require massive amounts of energy to run its modern cities, copper to wire its advanced technology, and raw food to feed its growing billions. When severe inflation spikes and supply chains fracture, the price of these raw, foundational materials skyrockets. If you own the productive assets that create the things human beings literally need to survive, you hold all of the leverage in the new economy. The third pillar is productive, hard real estate and strategic land. In a normal economic environment, excessive debt is a severe risk. But during periods of aggressive hyperinflation or severe sustained currency debasement, long-term fixed-rate debt can actually become your greatest financial weapon, provided it is used exclusively to acquire a productive, cash-flowing hard asset. Think deeply about agricultural land. Think about critical industrial commercial properties, logistics hubs, and multifamily housing in strategic, resource-rich jurisdictions. If you borrow fiat currency today, currency that will mathematically be worth 40 to 50% less in purchasing power over the next 5 to 10 years, you are essentially paying back your loan to the bank using highly devalued monopoly money. The inflation is literally eating away your debt, while the tangible, physical asset you purchased retains and actually compounds its intrinsic, real-world value. But you must be incredibly calculated and careful. Not all real estate is created equal in a collapse. You do not want speculative, high-end luxury condos in major metropolitan cities that are suffering from extreme taxation, rising crime, and demographic decline. You want land that physically produces food. You want properties that generate essential, undeniable cash flow because people will always need a place to live and businesses will always need places to store physical goods. You want assets that provide utility, not vanity. The fourth and final pillar of the 2026 blueprint is the decentralized digital safe haven, Bitcoin. We cannot and must not ignore the absolute reality of the digital financial revolution. In 2026, we are no longer debating the validity of this asset. We are actively seeing massive sovereign nations, vast state pension funds, and massive publicly traded corporations aggressively adding Bitcoin to their strategic treasury reserves. Bitcoin has cemented itself as pristine digital gold. It is an unconfiscatable, mathematically scarce, totally decentralized asset that exists entirely outside of the traditional, highly manipulated fiat banking architecture. Years ago, when various Western governments began freezing the bank accounts of peaceful protesters, they inadvertently woke the entire world up to a terrifying dystopian reality. Your money sitting in your bank account is not actually your money. It is an unsecured IOU from a highly leveraged institution, and your access to it can be turned off with a single keystroke by a bureaucrat. Now, central banks are pushing central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, which will give governments the ultimate power to track, trace, and control every single transaction you make. They will be able to dictate what you can buy, where you can buy it, and put expiration dates on your money to force you to spend it. Bitcoin, when held correctly in cold, self-custody wallets, absolutely cannot be frozen by any government. It cannot be diluted or debased by a central bank printing press. The supply is mathematically locked at 21 million coins forever, protected by the most powerful cryptographic computing network in human history. It is the ultimate frictionless escape hatch for massive amounts of global capital fleeing a burning, collapsing fiat building. As the dollar loses its dominance, capital will frantically search for liquidity and security, and Bitcoin provides the most pristine, borderless property rights ever engineered by humanity. It allows you to transport billions of dollars of purchasing power across the globe in seconds, without asking for permission from a bank or a politician. You must develop an absolute iron stomach. You must completely detach your emotions from the daily fiat price of your hard assets. You must deeply understand that violent volatility is simply the unavoidable toll you must pay on the long, difficult road to ultimate financial sovereignty. If you are constantly checking the fiat value of your gold or your Bitcoin every hour, you have completely missed the point. You do not measure your wealth in a dying currency. You measure your wealth in ounces, in acreage, in energy production, and in immutable digital scarcity. Take a step back and look at the massive historical transition we are living through right now. The transition away from the unipolar US dollar to a highly complex multipolar global currency system is happening right now in real time, right in front of your eyes. If you choose to keep the vast majority of your life's wealth stored in rapidly debasing paper dollars, euros, or yen, you are willingly chaining yourself to the mast of a sinking ship. You are actively trusting the exact same politicians, the exact same central bankers, and the exact same Wall Street institutions who mathematically engineered this massive crisis to somehow magically fix it. They cannot fix it. The sovereign debt is far too large. The global loss of trust is too deep. The fundamental mathematics of the system are entirely, unforgivingly broken. The greatest wealth transfer in the history of human civilization is not approaching. It is actively happening today. Massive generational wealth is rapidly moving from the creditors to the debtors. It is moving violently from the naive savers of paper currency to the educated owners of hard assets. It is shifting geographically from the debt-laden West to the producing East and South. But most importantly, on a deeply personal level, wealth is transferring from the ignorant, the distracted, and the passive directly into the hands of the highly informed, the focused, and the aggressively prepared. My friends, I have said it before and I will say it again. The storm is no longer approaching on the horizon. The economic storm is already here, tearing through the foundation of the global economy. But inside every single historic storm, inside every period of massive chaos and restructuring, there is incredible, unprecedented opportunity for those who have built a strong, unbreakable foundation. You deserve to be financially free. You deserve to absolutely keep the wealth that you trade your precious, finite life energy to create. Do not let corrupt politicians and central bankers quietly steal it from you in the middle of the night through the hidden tax of inflation. I started this channel, Aurex, because I looked around and saw the endless stream of lies, half-truths, and dangerous distractions being peddled by the mainstream financial media, and I absolutely could not stay silent anymore while good people were being led to the slaughter. I want to arm you with the raw data, the unvarnished macroeconomic knowledge, and the fierce psychological courage required to protect your family's future in this chaotic decade. Thank you for staying with me and watching this entire video until the very end. Your attention span is your greatest asset in an age of distraction. I love all of my subscribers for your continued, unwavering support as we navigate these historic, unprecedented times together. Stay strong in your convictions, stay deeply informed about the changing world, and always, always protect your wealth with absolute ruthlessness. I'm John A.G. This is Aurex. I will see you in the next video.